So people tend to be, at all different points when they come to me anyway, across my desk.
So let me ask you, Janelle, when you find people, when you have a job that's posted, first of all, is it through networking or is it through your contacts? I mean, how does that process work from your standpoint? If someone wants to hire someone,
Well, the client contacts me directly,
okay,
right? It's
and
not through a post. It's not through LinkedIn. It's a one-on-one conversation about what their needs are.
and then you would reach out to people that you know that could you build relationships with.
Yes, my level of recruiting is based on recommendations,
Hmm.
based on our own database, which I think is bigger than LinkedIn. And I and I think that, well, you got to remember, Ken, I'm in the business 30 plus years,
Hmm.
so there's a lot of people in our database, past, present, and future, because we get a lot of the new, the newcomers. What happens is we go through our database, we look at the people, who would like to present to the role, people that I know. And you're right, it's relationships, both on the client side as well as the candidate side. We may not hear from a candidate after 5 years or 10 years, and then all of a sudden they pop back up again.
Yeah.
To Barbara's point, those people have a little bit of a deficiency in how to get back to doing what they do best, in terms of reaching out. So there's a lot of different ways that people come to us, recommendations, but clients come to us because they know us. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, I mean, I think it did for me. I think it's about, it's about, we tell a lot of our job seekers what to do and not to do. In some cases, it's not to just kind of do the spaghetti against the wall and find a job,
Right, exactly.
uh, which I think makes a big difference. And I think in some cases, um, networking is a lot different now than it was 10, 15 years ago with a lot of our candidates that are out there. And I
Yes.
think for them, that's a big challenge is to kind of work with them on some of those best practices because, we talk about how do you brand yourself, and how do you differentiate? I mean, you can have a conversation with someone and you can find out more from them, Janelle, than they have on their resume or their LinkedIn profile. But you
Right.
wouldn't necessarily know that if you had to look at the resume by itself or the
Right. You
or
have to have a conversation. You have to have a long conversation. I talk to people 2 and 3 times. I Zoom with them two
Mhm.
and three times before they even get presented.
So let me ask you, Jenna and Barbara, do you have questions for Janelle as a recruiter as to things that you would be curious about in terms of a process?
I have so many questions. I don't even know where to start. Jenna, how about you?
I was going to say, can we put the open to work to bed? Putting on the open to work frame on the LinkedIn profile.
So what's your thought about that, Janelle? Open to work or not open to work?
Do you really want me to answer that?
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
All right. All right. There's a way to present yourself, as everybody knows, on LinkedIn. And as long as that profile looks just like or very similar to that resume, why do people, especially executives, have to put on their profile open to work? Why? Whether
Okay.
you are working or not, I'm going to find you if I'm researching on LinkedIn. I'm going to find you, yes or no. And whether you have that on your profile or not, I'm going to reach out, right?
So how would you reach out though? Would you do a search on LinkedIn, like a Boolean search, or would you ask someone in the network? I mean, how would
Right.
that work?
I ask people in the network if they know these people. And typically there's somebody that's connected to that person who I know, typically. Whether it's a first or second, or, I just might reach out to them myself and just say, I'd love to chat for a couple of moments.
So as an example, Whitney Khan is a fellow recruiter. People need to understand the recruiters don't find people jobs. We help companies find people.
Right.
And I
Well,
think that, go ahead.
wait, people need to understand that recruiters don't find people
People
jobs.
jobs. We help companies find people.
Well, that's a bunch of shit.
Janelle, I'm so tired of you just pussyfooting around things. Tell us how you really feel.
I mean, Barbara, if you know me, right? I mean, we don't help people find jobs. Well, what the hell are we doing here?
I know where she's coming from, but I also know you, and it is kind of the same thing. What whoever that was, what she was saying was that the company is paying you, the recruiter, and so it's your job for them to find the perfect candidate. So you're not being hired by the candidates to find them the perfect job, but ultimately it's a match, so it's a win-win.
All right, Barbara, I'm going to ask you a question. What does
Please.
money have to do with helping someone?
Well, it depends. How hungry are you?
Right,
I need food on the table. No, but I help people without money anyway. No, I understand what you're saying.
Well, there you go. Right? All right, my attitude is this: companies can help themselves. Right? They've got a whole support staff, 10,000, 20,000 employees. When a candidate comes to me and says they need help, they're not going to pay me a dime. They're going to look for my assistance to navigate through the muddy waters of how to get to that company. Now, I'm not going to get paid if I don't place the person. Right. And let's be honest, I talk to more people, right, in a month than the 3 or 4 placements I make a month. So
I have
what's the reality in that? Go ahead.
I don't know that many recruiters.
Okay.
But would you say you're the normal recruiter?
I've been told I am not the normal recruiter.
No, because I think you stand above the rest, like others do, not just you, I'm sure there's other good ones, that you care about the people and the candidates and you want to help them. Not all the recruiters do. Yeah, but
right.
They don't.
I know that I know there's a lot of big companies out there, recruiters out there, a lot of hack recruiters out there that are only interested in one thing, and that's making that fee. Whether they like the person or not, they're going to jam them in the door. And that's the problem.
Right.
Right? You have to look at the person, look at the company, make the match. You might be wonderful. There you go.
Michelle wants to know, what is the definition of a normal recruiter?
I do believe I air quoted it, and I would say average or the run of the mill is what I was referring to. Right. I know Janelle personally. I know these things that she's saying are true, and that she does go above and beyond for the candidates. And I don't think all recruiters do that.
No, because they're also, by the way, Barbara, in all fairness, they are locked in to a quota. They have to make umpteen calls a day. They have to make sure that they're talking to 55 people a day, and they have to make sure that they're hitting certain goals. And I'm sure there's analytics around that completely. But I will tell you, the only way you are successful in this business for the long term, like myself, 30 plus years, is to be able to make that relationship, not just with the client, but with the candidate. And if you've been in this business this long, everyone knows, those people know it's the relationship. It's caring about the candidate. It's understanding what they want and don't want. I'm not going to jam. Do you know how many people walk into these roles 3 months later, call me on the phone and say, Janelle, somebody placed me here at this company and it's not what I expected. Right. Well, why the hell not? Why not? Why wasn't it explained correctly? That's the difference.
Right.
And by the way, there's some great recruiters out there. But absolutely, for God's sakes, think about the person.
Right.
Not the company so much.
I do want to get back to, I have a question about the open to work, but I don't want to interject. I just don't want to forget it. So,
Yep.
Is that recruiter question answered for Michelle? That was Michelle, right?
Michelle wanted to know the definition of a normal recruiter. I'm going to just put some comments up. There are tons of horrible recruiters out there, and it gives our industry a very bad name. I'm more so aligned with Janelle on a process. I just like to let people know that I don't have the ability to place everyone,
Right.
which I think is valid.
Absolutely.
For sure. And Linda Brubaker, who's one of, I agree with you, Barbara. The normal recruiter doesn't work for the candidate. They work for the company. The company's the one who pays your salary or your fee.
Okay.
And Janelle is so right. I am so tired of getting ghosted by recruiters after sending them my information and an initial conversation. I mean, I think there's different levels of recruiters. There's the ones that throw out the resume to anyone and everyone and hopes it sticks. And then there's the ones that are maybe the ones that are per diem from a company. I know that when I'm at Lee Hecht Harrison and we talk about job search, we talk in very general terms, because I think in a lot of cases, a lot of the people there don't even know the process. They're still kind of locked into the boards, to putting the job on the board. And it's like you tell me, Jenna, I mean, do you find that with your groups that they're still talking about putting on the job boards, and that's how you're going to spend your time? I mean, again, I know what I hear in my groups. I'd like to hear from you, Jenna, what you see.
Jenna's unite. I see it all the time. People are like, so you want me to customize my resume, but then when I post it on LinkedIn, what is that? And I'm like, oh my gosh, no. So I see it oftentimes where it's like, okay, well, where can I post my resume? I want to post my resume everywhere I can. So see it.
I mean, there's some things, we talk about strategy. Janelle has a certain strategy for the client she's working with. I also think there's no one size fits all. I was having a conversation because I do a group on Monday night, and I said to the person there, she's trying to explain to me what she's looking to do, and I had no idea. I couldn't understand it. I mean, I said, it's the old, well, if you can't explain this to me from an 8-year-old standpoint, how's a recruiter or anyone else going to understand?
Yeah.
Well, all right, Ken, do you mind if I address that for a moment?
No, absolutely not.
Yeah, I mean, but that's a great point. We have a lot of candidates, you at first glance when you get a resume in by referral or just, there's a lot of companies out there that resume blast everybody. But when you see one that looks quite unique, I have a tendency to call them because I want to understand what they do. So if you've been in the seat for a very long time, you get to understand certain nuances of resumes and, what people are trying to say and what they're saying. And that's why I pick up the phone and I call to understand am I understanding it correctly? With LHH or with people that are, trying to counsel, mentor, move that person in the right direction. If you're not familiar with nuances and codes and acronyms and all of that crazy stuff, because you don't work in that world, in so many different worlds of people like we do, it is hard, and it's hard to understand what they do. I'll give you a quick example. I got a candidate from one of our network groups that was recommended. I went through his resume. We spoke. I thought he was a great presentation, excellent communicator. After I got off the phone with him the first time, I said, Jesus, Christopher, Mary, and Joseph, I have no idea what he does. Like, it was very foreign to me. A couple of days later, I get him back on the horn. We speak a little more. I try to get a little more information. maybe I learned this much more. A week later, a company called and asked me for a particular background. And I said, my God, this is like a purple squirrel. It really is. Well, within minutes, I thought to myself, my God, that's what Clint does. So I grabbed his resume out. I looked at it. I looked at the job description and said, are you serious? They were identical.
Wow.
So you never know, right? You never know what you're going to learn from a resume or from a unique job description. And look, I don't know everybody's background, the engineers particularly. I don't know a lot of the clinical ones, very foreign to me. But as you go along, you learn. So that's really it, Ken. I just, it's hard for you to understand each and every resume. Very hard.
That raised a couple of questions for me. But I don't remember how we got there or if anybody else has any other questions for us. I wrote my questions down.
First of all, this is being recorded, so for those that miss it, and again, and we all kind of figured this is Al Smith. If you can't explain it simply, you don't know it well enough, I guess. What I did in the group is I had a marketing person who was there who was looking for a job. Try to explain to the other person how to market themselves. Put her on the spot.
Right.
But because part of it is people don't know what they want to do sometimes, which is a very big part of it. It's like they know what they think they want to do, but it may not be what they want to do because they haven't thought about it. And I think, we come across that at LHH. It's like, are you sure you want to do this? Do you know what this entails?
Right. Do they say that, Ken?
What?
That I want to do something different?
Well, most of the people I work with, I can only speak for myself. They're very into their industry, and they definitely want to stay within the industry because
good.
Because that's what they're comfortable with. The problem is, and I'll speak from IT, they throw the IT stuff at me left and right, or pharma stuff, or whatever it is, and I'm like, yeah, I don't really understand this. Maybe someone in pharma does, but sometimes they use stuff from the job they just left. And that's even worse. And I was saying, I was actually working on a resume from someone at Boeing, and they were talking about all the Boeing stuff they did. And I'm thinking to myself, and I'll ask you, Janelle, if you got a resume from someone at Boeing, would you think, oh my God, based on the company they worked at, would you feel less inclined to work with them? Or is that just a bias?
I wouldn't be inclined not to work with them.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
We get resumes in from Sikorsky. We get resumes in from all over the country, working from big time major companies. Mm-hmm. ExxonMobil, DuPont, and these people are very placeable. We worked with a group down in Texas. A couple of guys came out of DuPont, and they were, again, very engineering types. Got hired.
So
even though I don't know what the hell they do.
Right. So so many questions all involve the same thing. So when you're talking with these people that have very specific roles and very specific things that they do, one of the things that I recommend, and I don't know whether this is correct or not, is it depends on the audience. Everything depends on everything. And some of these details are going to really matter to some of the people that are reading the resume. But some of these details have nothing to do with what they're looking for. So to be more generic in the way you describe what you've done or who you've done it for, if you've worked for these great big companies, but now you want to work for a little company, don't so much focus on the big stuff. Focus on what you do, right? So you would agree with that, okay?
Absolutely. Right. Because
the
first thing they're going to say is, why would you come to work for a small firm?
Right. If all you're talking about is aviation electronics and your aviation this, aviation that, and now you're going into boats, just leave the aviation part off and just talk about your electronics.
Yeah, so, exactly. Right.
Okay, awesome. And then when it comes to acronyms, generally I tell people to, if it's an industry standard, yes, but you never know who's going to read your resume. And
Right.
then I date myself, because when I worked for the president of a company, all the resumes came to me first and I would read them, and then he would get the ones that I didn't get. So
Sure.
if I didn't understand it, I might not know that it was a good match, even though, so I don't know all the acronyms and those things. But if it's in the job description, chances are anybody who reads the resume is going to know it. So that's kind of another way I guide people. Would you agree with that as well?
Well, I do, Barbara. And you have a very hard job these days, just like we all recruiters do too.
Right.
The first hit on the parade is HR, right? And we know that today HR comes in the form of 20-ish to 80-ish. And that 20-ish seems to be the market. What the hell do they know about acronyms?
Right.
Those acronyms.
Thank you for clarifying. I was going to say, well, yeah.
Right. Those acronyms.
Right.
And what do they know about the technicality of those acronyms?
Right.
You know, they're there to check a box. I get it. But it is pulling short hairs when you're trying to discuss a background.
Yeah.
You understand?
Absolutely.
And you have the same, and you all have the same problem. You really do, as to how to mentor and guide your candidate on that resume. It's absolutely very difficult.
I'm glad that you feel our pain.
I do, believe me.
Can I go back to when you were talking about unique resumes?
Yep. Can you hold for me for 1 second? I'm alone.
Absolutely.
Hi, honey.
Guest of honor, we have to hold for her.
So, in the meantime, Jenna and Jana, this is it's interesting to get a perspective from a recruiter, for sure.
Oh,
And I know Janelle kind of tells it like it is. But I reach out to people all the time just to get a sense of what they're doing. Don't be scared by her.
Don't be scared by what?
You, Janelle, can't help it if you're a Packers fan, but don't be scared.
Oh. Listen, this is the most fun I've had all day, because I said, I told everybody to stay home today.
Oh, yeah.
So when and I came in at 7:15 this morning because I have all this to do. So this is the most fun I've had all day. And believe me, talking to people like Ken and you, Barbara, and you two Jennas, which I find very hysterical because you both have the same name. Jenna is not common. So it's wonderful to be with you today. It really is. To be able to share this stuff and be real about it.
Appreciate that.
You
Yes,
mentioned
nobody's
all
watching.
the feedback.
I'm sorry.
No, I love getting all of the different feedback, and I love racking the brains of recruiters. What do you do? What are you searching? How did you do that? So I love it.
And Whitney says here, I always suggest for people to connect the dots for the recruiter or the hiring manager at the top of their resume. That's a thing we get all the time. Use that company's language. If I see one more thing that says summary on the top, the summary. Yeah. And I'm like, and they have that, and they're proud of it.
But Ken,
they don't know any better,
right? That's what we always did.
Yeah, and that's I tell people in my comments, this is no longer the convention. This is no longer the convention. So,
Barbara,
okay.
How do you navigate? How do you guide your candidate when you're doing the resume? How do you guide your candidates to what to put up at the top to grab the attention immediately of that company?
What I generally tell them is it's not their title, it's their what's the woke term that I end up using all the time? The words escape me, but it's how you I know it's one of those terms that people can't stand about your how you see yourself, but whatever. But the bottom line is, best case, every resume is going to align with the job description. If they're looking for a bank officer, you're a bank officer. If they're looking for an officer of banks, you're an officer of banks. It's how you identify. That's how do you identify? So
how do you identify, Barbara?
I identify as a Jill of all trades, which is a really big problem, especially for recruiter types. But my silly example is qualify for that. If you qualify for it, then own it. You know, even though you don't happen to have that title in your resume, right or wrong, that's kind of the, you know, the air that I give.
Well, you know what? There's a very, very interesting correlation between how you identify, right, with your role, how you want to be perceived out there when you're a leader, right? A mid to upper level executive, right? The mid level and below have there's different language, let's be honest.
Absolutely.
When they're promoting themselves. But for that director and above, that language at the top of the resume has to be about them. It can't be about, I do P&L, I do GL, I do software. It can't be. It's got to be about their leadership. It's got to be, right? They worked all this time to be in the position they're in. Well, who the hell wants to know that they can code?
Exactly.
Right? They want to know that they can lead. Who wants to know that a CFO knows how to do P&L? You know, I see that all the time. Let's talk about leadership. Let's talk about how you're going to move that company, bring in another revenue stream, innovate, good ideas, fun ideas, things that we don't ever like to talk about ourselves, right? But put them up at the top of the page. Give the reader something to read. It just makes so much sense. You know, we all like to read, but we don't like to be bored. And how many times have you heard from a company that says, oh my God, if I read the same damn thing for the 10th time today, I'm not doing it. Because everybody writes the same thing.
The same thing. Okay. Question about the same thing. Experience. I have 7 years of experience. I have 25 plus years of experience. I have extensive experience. I have comprehensive experience. What, if we want to let the reader know that they have a lot of experience in this, how do we make that not sound like the same thing over and over? And I've gotten away from using the number of years for different reasons, although maybe that's wrong. I don't know. But how many times can we say extensive and comprehensive? So is this something we should be doing or shouldn't be doing? Janelle, tell me.
I'm going to tell you. I'm going to tell you in, hold on, I'm going to tell you in 3 seconds. I am going to read something to you. Okay. And I want you to tell me what you think. Let's see. I just to get your opinion. How's that?
And you're talking to everybody, not just me, right?
No, I'm talking to everybody. And I'd love your opinion. All right. So I'm just going to read it. You tell me what you think. Highly regarded, dynamic executive with expertise at increasing performance and driving profitability. Recognized for energetic collaboration, teamwork, negotiation, and building loyal business relationships. Respected for a solid work ethic and known as being loyal to the core. Anticipate trends and ensure high-performing teams have all the tools necessary to become successful. Driven and consistently gives 100%. That's at the top of a resume. Now, you might think it sounds a little verbose. You know, they're talking a little bit about themselves, but that's a good thing, right? It's differentiating themselves.
And they're not saying, I am this, I am that. They're saying everybody else thinks I am this and everybody believes that I am that because of my reputation. My reputation precedes me.
Jenna, what do you think?
I love the way that sounds as far as on the top of the resume. I always tell people, you know, I remember back in the day hiring at a bank, and I'd be hiring for personal banker positions, and I'd get resume titled who knows what. It's like, first it focuses it, then let me know, what do I get when I know you? When I meet Janelle, I know I'm going to get what I get. I get the honest truth, and I love it.
Exactly. That tells me I want to talk to this person.
Yeah.
That tells me I'm loving this guy. Right? I want to know who he is. And by the way, that was a chief operating officer's resume. Right? Top of the pile. Great background. He just happens to be a Green Bay Packer fan. Not because I knew that, but he is. But that type of introduction to the world is a good thing. The reader gets excited.
I was going to say, it has energy. It's not just I do this, I do that, I do this. And it's not just I do this, I do that. It's, I do it well. And people know I do it well because I'm known for it. So they're owning it, which is something I try to, don't say I can do something, say I do something. Because just because you can do it doesn't mean you will. So a lot of the words matter. Words really do matter. When it comes to something like that, now we've been taught with the ATS and keyword searches, anything higher to the top is more important to the reader and more important to the weights of the ATS. So how important is it to have the actual keywords up in there as well, as opposed to these are the things that I do well, which I have to have all these keywords in order to do them?
You know what? Forget the keywords at the top of the resume. Okay. Forget that. Because typically they're going to be in the body. Right? I'm not a big fan of ATS. You know, I wish they would just dump them all into the sea. The reason for that, I do. The reason for that is because the resumes go in to a big machine. Right? And, you know, maybe they're lucky enough, you know, that somebody's going to see one of them.
Which goes all the way full circle to what I said. The resume is important. You got to send it in. It's got to be good, but you have to be connected. And that's, I tell my little LinkedIn story of how I got this job, and somebody on JobBite, because I researched it, from LHH said, I'm so glad Susie called me because she didn't make it through the ATS. So then I was armed with that information, but it's true. It's true. The ATS is a real pain in the ass, but it is a necessary evil that most of us have to deal with.
Right. Does anybody know anybody at KPMG?
No, not to my knowledge.
Well, I do. And I know somebody in the staffing area, talent acquisition, was a good friend of mine. I don't do business with them, but a good friend of mine. You know what she told me? Well, Janelle, the first mistake is that he sent his resume through the ATS system. She said the reason why we didn't see it is because it went through the ATS system. Mm-hmm. I mean, come on. If that isn't a wake-up call, you know, for people who are blasting their resume in a black hole, you know, she said, send me the resume. I'll get it over to the hiring manager immediately. The first mistake they made was sending it through the ATS system. I mean, and that's Big Four looking for people. It's crazy.
You just brought me full circle to one of my first questions. Does anybody else have any questions? Because I'm just going to keep going.
I was going to ask a different type of question.
What kind of question, Ken?
I was going to ask about when you see the job specs on LinkedIn and they have the wish list there of all the things they want done and all that, how important is it to match some of them? I mean, they are just a wish list in some cases.
Well, what's the rule of thumb? The top 3 bullets, the top 3 responsibilities is what we concentrate on. different when I talk to the client because I ask questions that most people would never ask, because of the job description and what's important. So I ask the hiring managers things that most people would never ask and never show up on a job board. So it's typically the first 3 items on that description. Everything else is a wash. It's a wish list, just like you said. It's the kitchen sink is what it is.
Right.
And everything in it. I gave you the example this morning. I got a call from a CFO. He said, Janelle, I need an FP&A person. High level, 185, 195, 200. That's a pretty high level FP&A person. And I want you to take a look at the job description to see if everything is in there. No problem. I took a look at it. I told him that he needed to add a couple of things. He goes, really? I said, yeah. I said, today with FP&A, both accounting and finance need to be pretty close. You have to understand FP&A needs to understand accounting and vice versa. So make sure you throw a couple of little bullets in there about accounting, but push them up to the top. Because it's important to him. Yeah. He said, I really like that type of individual. And by the way, if you know of a hybrid person, finance, accounting, that needs a job, tell them to call me, please.
Keep that in mind.
The John Sampson, our man Sampson, can you share with us one question folks don't ask? And I'm not sure if that's asking on an interview. I'm not sure what that means exactly.
John, be a little more specific.
Which folks not asking?
I don't know.
Could you give us a question?
While we're waiting for that, Janelle, you mentioned when a resume is unique. Now, when you're looking at resumes and you're visually looking at resume after resume, do you like when they're visually different, or do you like that it's just easy to get through and that everything is easy to find because it's where you expect it to be? Do you like the ones that have the pictures and the boxes and columns? Do you have a preference?
Well, that's not, you said it very well before. It's a living, breathing document. And far be it from me to tell somebody how to write a resume, in all honesty. What they should be thinking about is the reader. Who's going to be reading that? And does it flow easy? Is it easy on the eye? Are all the words packed in like this, at each line? Because we've seen those too. But they should be thinking about the reader. For me, creativity, innovation, artwork, all of that is part of the personality, right? Mm-hmm. And that's what I like, to see who that person is. So I take the whole picture, the whole resume, and look at it and say, I want to talk to this person. But the easier it is to read, the more it flows, the better it is for the reader.
Right.
Like a hiring manager or, HR or my client.
Right. Thank you. That's basically what I thought. And I tell people that they're all employed. They're all salespeople. It's their job to sell themselves as the best fit for the role. And your job as a salesperson is to remove hurdles. So you need to make it as easy as possible for people to want to hire you and to get everything that's in the way of that out of the way. So making it easy to read is certainly one of the big things. But also, you don't want to lose personality either. So
right. Great quote, though. Make it easier for people to hire you.
Right.
Excellent.
Oh, thank you.
You should put that at the top of your resume. That's what we call a hook.
Yeah.
Right. People will put a line, a quote,
tagline. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a great hook. I love it.
Thank you. Somebody had a question and we were looking for more information. Did we get that info? Oh, John Sampson.
Just said she asks questions, others don't. Clients, candidates, all of the above.
Well, what the hell kind of a question could we ask?
I know what he's saying.
All right.
You said, I ask questions that others don't when you were talking about the candidate and going back and forth. Well, he's saying, well, what questions don't others ask? I think, John, that's what you're saying.
Ask questions that others don't.
I would
Well,
say,
like,
if not for the weather, he could come over the house because he's in a different part of town.
You know, maybe.
Well,
Okay,
we
so
can always respond later on.
Yeah.
Well, I want to thank you guys very much for chatting today.
oh my goodness, you are so welcome.
You know, this always makes my day, Kenneth, when we get the chance to hang out like this.
Chatting, we had a party.
Okay. All right, so we're going to keep partying on the rest of the day. This is being recorded. So have a great day, everyone.
Have a great day. Beautiful. Barbara, great to see you again. Believe me.
Likewise.
And
we'll have to
it was wonderful to meet both Jennas. Thank you.
Yes, take care. Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
I don't know how to get out of here.